My last two projects in the foundry were not foundry projects. I worked on a couple of boats and I built those gates. So it's time to put the foundry back together. All my foundry stuff is on wheels, except for the kiln. It doesn't move. So first you roll the furnace into position. It needs to be centered directly under the electric hoist beam because the hoist picks up the crucible. And then the sand pit is almost in line with that, but off a little bit. It's easier for me to pull on the crucible while I'm pouring than to push. So I like to have it a little bit to my side. And then I have a little platform that I built because I like to get up high and look down on the crucible full of molten metal rather than looking up at it. It just it's a lot safer and I have better control. So that's what it takes to put the foundry back in foundry mode.
Okay, I've staged my molds, and this is assuming I can pour all 5 at one time, but I won't know until I weigh to see how much bronze it'll take. It's no big deal, other than you don't want to be fritzing with these when they're hot and you got melted bronze in the pot and you're in a hurry. And the main thing is that one, they fit, and two, if you do happen to hit the mold with the bucket, you don't want them to fall over. I did that once already. So just to put a brace, they'll all fit no problem. The heights are good. This one was way too tall to put in the sand pit. So all I did was put a piece of sheet metal duct pipe on the outside. And I got about 3 inches of the white insulation on the bottom of it. So when I drop the mold, it won't be sitting on the concrete, and I can drop it pretty hard. It's hard to handle these with my mitts. I don't have dexterity like you do now when they're cold. And when they're red hot, you got to kind of manhandle them. But I will spread a little sand around on the concrete in case I spill a little bronze when I'm pouring this one that's not in the sand pit. Make sure the concrete doesn't pop and distract me from doing a good job. So now, same old, same old. I'll bring these outside and remove the cup wax and the metal hooks, and then we'll de-wax them in the kiln. Alright, the 3 hooks are out. We're going to go put this in the kiln and get the rest of the wax out. This is what the silicon bronze looks like when you buy it. This is a brand new ingot. It's roughly 25 pounds. And some people may not think that's pretty, but I think it's beautiful.
I can fit 2 of these in an empty crucible standing up, but then once I close the top, and if I need to add another one, I can't really hold them with the tongs. They're too heavy, and I usually don't need to add that much, so I cut them in half, and it just works out better. I was filling the molds with water and pouring the water into the bucket so I could weigh how much water each mold held. And you see I spilled a little bit. Well, that was the end of this scale. It never worked again. I had to go buy a new scale. It's like a touch screen. It doesn't have buttons, so it would probably survive a spill. But anyway, I covered it with plastic.
So I just filled all 5 molds with water and weighed the water, each one separately. This damn scale I bought weighs in pounds and ounces, so I had to convert pounds and decimal pounds. and 1 pound of water is displaces 8.64 pounds of bronze. So I was able to figure out how much bronze each mold was going to take. So if I pour all 5 of them, it'll take 87.94 pounds. My crucible holds 90 pounds, and that's to the tip top. And it's really hard to pour from the tip top. Plus there's always some slag, and by the time you remove that, it's probably an inch down. So I don't think it's practical to pour all 5 of these in one shot, or maybe not even possible. So I played with them a little bit, and what we're going to do is pour the base mold and the hoop number 2, which is the heaviest hoop, and that'll take 43.8 pounds of bronze. And then we'll pour the rope and the other 2 hoops, and that'll take 44 pounds of bronze. So almost even Steven. And I like that better. You don't have to fill the crucible so full. I can pour the first 2, put the crucible back in the furnace, and it'll still be very hot. The furnace will be hot. It won't take long to melt the second batch. So that's what we're going to do early tomorrow morning. So I came early this morning to beat the heat. Everything's ready. The crucible's loaded up. It's nice and quiet. I don't have any fans going right now. I'm fixing to light the crucible, or light the furnace, and turn on my 4 fans. So this will be the end of the quiet time. Filled my rope mold with water yesterday to see how much material it would take. The bottom was leaking a little bit, probably not enough to let bronze through, but I went ahead and dipped it 2 more times, and I'm going to kind of dry it out right now on top of the furnace so I can put it in the kiln.
The bronze is ready. It's up to temperature. I leave the furnace on, but I turn it down a little bit so it doesn't overheat the metal. You can see that the kiln was a little over 1800 degrees, so it's plenty hot. The molds are hot. When I started doing this a few years back, I didn't have these tongs, and I was putting on a lot of clothes and reaching in there and trying to grab these things by hand. And it was just ridiculous. So I made the tongs. They hang from a ceiling, a track with some little wheels, and they work super. It's a little easier if you have 2 people and one person kind of lays them down when you get them out. It's a little awkward to get the tongs out from under a mold. You have to lay them down. When you have a short squatty mold, it's no problem. The pour I made just an hour or so earlier, when I got to the sand pit, I used my mitts, which are lined with ceramic shell. You feel no heat. The heat does not get through them, but they're awkward as all get out. And I messed around and knocked one of the molds over. It didn't hurt it, but it fell over into the sand. And it's been frustrating. So on this pour, I'm back with the leather gloves, and you see that smoke? That's not from the mold. That's from the gloves burning. I was able to do 2 molds, and I had to drop the gloves because they were too hot. So gloves have been an issue for me. I need to find the right kind. I actually ordered some quote-unquote asbestos gloves, military surplus, but that was a waste of money because they burn up instantly. So I think I just need to have 3 or 4 pairs of leather, these welding gloves, and just move a mold, drop a glove, get another pair, and do that, because I can use the leather gloves and I'm not worried about dropping anything. So on this film, it's just about daylight. The sky is getting light, so I turned off most of the lights in the building just for dramatic effect. I think it's kind of cool seeing this stuff in the dark. I had cleaned the slag earlier with the top closed, but I saw a few more floaties, and I was I'm real concerned about that rope. It's a long, skinny path for that bronze to get to the bottom. So another scoop, and we're ready to go. So the bronze coming out of the furnace is about 2200 degrees, and it holds its heat a good bit better than the molds. It's dense. The molds are kind of lightweight, so the molds cool down pretty quickly. That's why I had the little white insulation on top of them, just trying to hold as much heat in them as you can. Now, ideally, you would want the mold the same temperature as the bronze, so there would be no thermal shock. The bronze would flow everywhere. It would never chill. But that's never the case. But try to get the molds as hot as I can, and for the most part, we've had good luck. Speed it up a little bit here. Poured out the 3 molds and everything that's left in the crucible. We empty it into the little ingot molds. Always empty the crucible and clean it out. And that's it. The bronze in the ceramic shell mold is probably frozen already. Although it's weak, it won't be strong. But it's frozen. It doesn't take but a second or two.
So I got the first 2 outside. They're still hot as crazy, but they're not glowing red anymore. And I'd be shocked if these didn't come out. The pour just went well. Look how much the ceramic shell comes off all by itself. It does not expand and contract with temperature, but the bronze does. So when the bronze starts shrinking, it creates all kind of stresses. And it starts popping. I'm gonna knock these off. I'm confident the other 2 big ones came out, but that rope, we'll just have to wait and see, letting it cool.
This little chipping gun works super fast, but it will dent the bronze, so you got to be kind of careful. I use it on the sprues and the risers, and I use it on the back of the piece. But if it's a face piece, I don't use it. Success on all the heavy castings. I was pretty confident they came out well, and they did. Now the rope, the $1 million question. Let's open it up and see. Had a surprise visit from the sculptor lady. So I was recently asked about the wire and wrapping wire in ceramic shell and what happens when it gets hot and the different expansion and contraction ratios and all that stuff. And the answer is, I don't have a clue. All I know is it works. It's there, it's tight, it keeps the mold together, and I don't really know what happens when it gets hot in the burnout kiln or when it gets hot when I pour bronze. Somebody smarter than me is going to have to let us know. All I know is the big boy foundries use it, so I use it too. The good news is we have a rope, or 2 ropes, and they both came out pretty well. Next order of business is cutting away all the unwanted, separate it from the wanted. I used mostly the big grinder on this project, a little bit of the little grinder. Did not use the portaband. You just got to do it. It's not fun. I've got this blasting cabinet and I use it to remove the ceramic shell. I use aluminum oxide 240 grit and it works pretty good. It takes a little while. But if I didn't have this blasting cabinet, I don't know how in the world somebody would go about removing the ceramic shell from all the little crevices. The stuff is tough. I mean, it's like a little piece of porcelain and it's cast into all the cracks. I'm not sure how you would remove it other than blasting it. Maybe some sort of acid or something. But thank goodness I got a blasting cabinet.
So I got my 6 segments bee blasted, and I got them laid out on the table on the mark I put from the original hoop, and it's looking kind of like it's going to be very close. By the time I square the ends up, I might be a little short, so I'm glad I poured this extra piece. I'd rather not weld a short piece in there if I don't have to. We'll just have to see how it ends up when I get the ends cleaned up and squared up.
So I'm going to wrap this video up. Next time we will weld the hoop together, clean up the ropes, weld the hoop to the base, and try to figure out how I'm going to make the welds look like the original pitted metal so they won't show so bad. So, okay guys, thanks for watching. These are short little videos, so should have another one out pretty soon.